Recorded.
Shalom Aleichem from Shalom, and welcome to another one of our revelations that we are presenting to this planet today. These are the last days. So again, I say Shalom, which is peace. The condition, even in your mind, Shalom. I am Shalom, according to prophecy being fulfilled. That's found in a book called Micah, in your Bibles, any Bible, but especially the King James Version in chapter 5 and verse 5. It was prophetically promised that Micah would be the peace, the man, the peace. In the last days, I am Micah. I'm your host. I'm also known to many, and especially the United States government, as Micah Israel. And I'm also known by a birth-given name as I came out of the womb on the 15th day of the 7th month of our year, 5957 of our solar time. Again, that was the 15th day of the 7th month, known as the Feast of Tabernacles, according to Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 34. And the year 5957 of our solar timetable. In the Gregorian calendar's table, it would be recognized as September 27th, 1954, the same date, the same day. And that's fulfilled, according to Micah chapter 5 and verse 2, as well as Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 14. I thank and praise my Father, my Ab, for that. And as we get started, for the record of this recording, the title of this testimony is The Fifth Angel Revealed, Part 2. The Fifth Angel Revealed, Part 2, and the conclusion. That means we're going to continue from last week, which was the first part of the fifth angel revealed. And today, for the recording's sake, today is the 29th day of the 9th month of our solar calendar. This is the 29th day of the 9th month of our solar calendar, year 6027, that's 6027, 6027, the solar year. Today is also known by the Gregorian calendar as Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. That again is Tuesday, December 10, 2024. The same day, two different calendars. Now, with that said, if you're going to join us, and again, as I always say, I try not to take up too much of your time, your Tuesday or your day, whatever day it is that you may be even watching the recording. I'm going to try real hard not to, but I must get several points of revelations revealed, as well as secrets that were kept, but especially to get several points cleared up as we continue from last week. So as you do, you can choose a Bible. There are plenty on the market today. Choose any Bible you like, whether it be the NIV, the NLT, the CSB, the RV, the ESV, whatever Bible that you choose, then you can grab hold of the Bible, even if it's the first that was ever published from 1611 to the public, which is the 1611 King James Version, authorized edition of the King James Bible, or King Yaakov. You can also break out the NKJV, the New King James Version that came out during the 20th century. In fact, all those Bibles are just named prior to the King James Version, 1611, all came out during the 20th century. The 20th century is known as between 1900 and 2000, 100 years, the 20th century. We are now in the 21st century, in the year 2024. Now, with that said, let's continue on from last week. As we went over, just to reiterate, very quickly, we went over and revealing that Apollon is here. I know I didn't mention that. But Apollon is here. All is known as Apollon is here, which is the fifth angel that I loosed out of the bottomless pit. But let me take you to that. Although before I do, let's clear up a couple things that he said, referring to me by many appellations that I was known today by name, appellation. One is Charles Lawrence Johnson. Another is Micah Israel. Another is Micah, the Morrisite. But let's go quickly just to reiterate that he mentioned that God is not a man. We went over that. You can check the first part of this two-part series, where he mentioned that God is not human. And we can go to that for a moment. Let's go to YouTube for a moment. And there was one in a YouTube short clip. Go to that for a moment. And let's just hear. He also said that I'm a cult leader, a false Messiah, I'm lying to the people. Okay, and of course, they are entitled to say that. In fact, I was expecting that today. So let's go to that for a moment. You may see it there.
Check this out. I'm doing a little quick reaction on one of my own videos. And but the title of this video is called Stop Lies to People. So why I'm doing this because a lot of people are falling for this nonsense. This buffoon, straight ass real talk. Y'all see this dude right here, man. Charles Lawrence ain't no my shit. Fact. I don't know why he lied to the people on all these videos, pushing all this hula and mental doctrine. We already know mental doctrine.
Okay, let's pause it.
Rectum cancer and prostate.
We're gonna pause it for a moment. Since you mentioned that, I'm gonna reiterate on that very quickly. I'm also at the same time going to reveal something that's hadn't been revealed before, at least live stream to the public. And this is www. In the last days, it was promised that the Christ is going to reveal plenty of secrets that he'd been holding back since over 2,025 years ago. However, it is recorded in the Bible of some of those secrets that are written metaphorically, allegorically, prophetically, simile, symbolically, and prose, just to name a few. And especially in its literal sense. But he mentioned Hulan Mitchell Jr. several times, and many today of my people, Judah, Yehuda, Israel, still call him by an English appellation known as Yahweh ben Yahweh. But I want to go back for a moment to 1979 when so-called Hulan Mitchell Jr. of his subject, also known as Yahweh ben Yahweh in English. The English appellation means, but that means God, the Son of God. He first came to Miami in 1979 bearing the Hebrew English appellation known as Moses or Moshe, Moses, Israel. And he came bearing that appellation for a reason. One of several reasons is because he is not the Son of God, never was the Son of God, never was. In a 1986 interview by Time magazine, and you can find that, it's called Time Interview, Yahweh, Time Interview. During the interview, he revealed to those who were there in his office at the time at the Temple of Love International Headquarters, still located, the building is still here in Miami, Florida. Of course, the temple is not itself in name, but the building still stands today. It's an ambulance service. But he sat in an office in 1986 and he revealed to those scribes that were there from Time magazine that he's John. John was the man. John was the prophet. He also at that time identified himself to them as John the Baptist. And a few moments later, He identified the man that's called Jesus. Remember, his name was Yahshua. Yahshua was a disciple, a student and a disciple of John. Of course, Yahshua is the English translation from the Hebrew name Yahshua to Joshua, also known as the Christ back in the days. And he mentioned that Joshua, also known as the Christ, had plenty of secrets, and he was, because he began to reveal secrets that were too soon. He mentioned in that interview 2,000 years, and then, well, 1,900 years too early. He mentioned that John, the man, was himself who baptized the Christ, or Yahshua. And he also, a few moments later, told one of the malefactors of those scribes that he is already being crucified at the time. He's being crucified by many people in this country and on the planet, especially here in Miami. And then it was asked, or he was told, or asked, can you be fatally persecuted? And of course, John, Yohanan, Yohanan, Hebrew, John English, there's no J in Hebrew. He told that scribe that you can't kill God. You cannot kill God. He said, I'm incarnate. He come in whatever vessel he choose. He chose to come in a vessel, and that's the vessel he chose. And after he was done with that vessel, of course, he had that vessel cremated a day after, so May 7th, 2007. And that's because at that moment, the God of the Hebrews came and spoke inside that vessel to that scribe. And that's why he mentioned to the scribe his spirit, because immediately after that question or that subject was aroused, God came down and sat inside the vessel of John. What do I mean by that? Well, here's a secret that was being kept for over 2,025 years. Although it's in the word, you just couldn't see it. So I'm going to point out to you, by removing the veil from over your heart, from over your mind, I'm going to reveal it. There was never two of us. There was never two. There was always three. There was three of us. And all three are one. Just like myself. You see one that you're looking at in a terrestrial, what you think is a terrestrial vessel. However, there's three of me, three. And all three of me agree in one. I repeat, there's three. There was three of us. There was three of us in the beginning, three. And there's also three of me. Right now, it still stands three. Now, going back to three as one, there was three, but now, after January of 1992, when an audio cassette was made by Yohanan, John, that my father came down in that vessel, came down and sat in that vessel and made that recording and left it for Israel, and especially Judah, to know that he's going back up. He went to his secret closet and took out his holy robe that he took off to come down to get his angels. But he put it back on. He went back up, sat on his throne, put a scepter in his right hand. And that's where the Son comes in, that's going to take those back that we came to get, of our angels, back to him. I did not come to deliver the children of Israel or Judah, Yehuda, back to that land. I did not come to do that. There's not going to be another land of Judah. That's going to be destroyed. The only land, the only place that we're going to live is called New Jerusalem in the Bible. That's in Revelation chapter 21. That's our home, New Jerusalem. We're not going back to the Middle East. And if you thought that, you are sadly mistaken, because in order to meet us or go where we're going, you most certainly have to be an angel of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. And you don't know what Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh is. You think that's a name or the name of God. It is not. But you're going to have to meet us in Galilee. Galilee, if you think it's a physical place, you are sadly mistaken. You need a new mind real bad. That's not a physical place. So for all of those who think you're going back to your homeland that's going to be destroyed, you're sadly mistaken. You do err. Let's go back for a moment now to 3. How is there 3 of us? It's in the word. In fact, go down to the book called John, and whatever Bible you choose. I'm going to read from the King James Version. I can read from any version. It doesn't matter. But go to John for a moment. Chapter 5. I'm going to go to, it's John, or you can say 1 John. You can say whatever John you'd like. It's not John anyway. Yohanan. So I'm going to go to 1 John, John, chapter 5 for a moment, which is the last chapter, by the way. And I am going to read verbatim, beginning at verse 6. Although I'm going to pose a question first in verse 5. Verse 5, which says, "Who is he that overcometh the world? But he that believeth that the Christ is the Son of God." See, the Christ is the Son of God, not Yohanan, and not Moshe Israel, not Moses, not Moshe Israel. Of course, you see in the verse Jesus was a euphemism for Yahshua. This is the same Jesus that scribe spoke of in 1986 when he posed the question. Remember, his name was Yahshua. Verse 6 says, "This is he that came by water and blood." Now, the water is Mem. The water is Mem. Mem, the 13th Hebrew symbol, is the God of water. And water became flesh after 40 weeks of the formation in a womb. After 40 weeks of formation of womb, that started December 27th, 1953. Just to reiterate from part 1, and to go with today's calendar of their Gregorian calendar, today is known as December 10th. December 10th. In 15 more days, this whole planet will be recognized on December 25th as the birth date or day of the Christ, which is false. The 5th angel accused me of being false and lying to the people. He has yet to prove that I've lied to any people on this planet, any race, creed, or color, any ethnocentrism. No ethnicity have I lied to, but he said I did, and that's why I'm going to set him straight now and place him in the bottomless pit, keep him in the bottomless pit. He has the key. I gave him the key in part 1. But just quickly, let me reiterate, he said I'm false. Well, Christmas, December 25th, as the birth date of Christ is false. It can be proven. It's in the Bible. I'm proving it now. That means the conception, it was an immaculate conception, phenomenal. It was a terrestrial implant conception that was implanted in the womb of a woman of the island, according to Isaiah chapter 49 and verse 1, on December 20th of 1953. 5 days later, the copulation of the fertilization, the copulation, when the embryo was, at that time, the egg set, the embryo was no egg, was a body that was already a body forming with 1 Y chromosome and 23 X chromosomes. It was 23 X chromosomes, X, and 1 Y chromosome that was implanted in that womb. And that will explain mostly why you will see today, as people are preparing now for December 25th, you will see signs going up saying Merry Xmas. Merry Xmas. That means Mary had the X. The woman represents Mary. M-A-R-Y. Yeah, they add M-E-R-R-Y for Mary. Homophone, a homophone, Mary. M-E-R-R-Y, Mary. M-A-R-Y, Mary. Mary is the X, or the woman whose womb the Christ was placed in 1953 on December 20th, was Mary. Mary, M-E-R-R-Y, Mary, or M-A-R-R-Y, Mary, homophone. And 5 days later, on December 20th, the X chromosome was then joined with a Y, 1 Y chromosome, 1 Y. The Y, the same letter at the end of Mary, whether it be Merry or Mary, the Y chromosome represented the Son of God and also not human, the only one of its type and kind in existence. And then 2 days after that, that represents the two, the Father and the Son. That brings it to the total of 7 days from December 20th is when the body started forming in that womb. That would be December 27th. And I believe it was a Sunday that year. Sunday, December 27th, 1953, the body of the Christ started forming in the womb of a woman of the island, just as prophecy promised, for 40 weeks, with 23 X chromosomes and 1 Y X chromosome. And 40 weeks later, that takes you to September the 26th at sundown, to September 27th at sundown became the 15th day of the 7th month of the Hebrew solar calendar, or Jewish. You can look at the Jewish almanac. And that would be the birth date that the Christ came out of the womb of that period, that day, that year. Again, according to the Gregorian calendar, was September 27th after midnight. See, September 26th after midnight on their calendar becomes another day, a new date on that calendar, the day after. And that's why after midnight, the record of vital statistics in the state of Florida, because it was after midnight of September 26th, they placed it as September 27th, 1954, after midnight. You can check with the Jacksonville, the vital of statistics of the state of Florida, located in Jacksonville, Florida. You can check that for yourself. 1954. That is the date that the Christ was born, or that day in 1954, which was a Monday, from 12 o'clock Sunday, midnight, into Monday. Now, with that said, that means that the blood, the water that was placed in the womb as mem, it then became blood on that day. The water became blood. I'm still in verse 6 of 1 John, or I John chapter 5, verse 6. This is he that came by water of a womb and blood of the Father, even the Christ, not by water only. If it was by water only, it could not have happened. The birth could not have come and taken place in a human body or terrestrial. But by water and blood, still in verse 6, and it is the Spirit that beareth witness. The Spirit that beareth witness was John. The Spirit that beareth witness was John. Why? Because the Spirit is truth. The Spirit is truth. Now, in verse 7, for there are three that bear record in heaven. There are three that bear record in heaven, which is who? The Father, that's God. The Father is God. The Word that was made flesh from water and blood. And that's according to John chapter 1, verse 1. And the Holy Ghost, which is John. And these three are one. As I said, there was three. And these three are one, and they come from one, which is the Father. Now, let's pause here for a moment and let it prove that. Because I was told, as expected from the fifth angel, it was expected that I'd be a liar. So let's prove whether I'm a liar or not. And let me reveal something else. Go now for a moment to John chapter 1. Not First John, but John, the book. That's right. That's the last gospel. Let's go to the last gospel. And it'll be John chapter 1. That's right after Luke. John. Now we go to John chapter 1. And here's the mystery to that. John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word. Do you have it? In the beginning, that's Even in Genesis chapter 1, in the beginning. That's the same three words, in the beginning, as John has in John chapter 1, verse 1. So is it in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word. And now I just confirmed to you in 1 John chapter 5 that Word became water and blood. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, which is the same water and blood, the Son. And the Word was God, the same Word that became God, as with God. God with God, that's two gods. God, the big God, the little God, but it's the same God. Are you hearing what I am saying and revealing to you today? Verse 1 is only one. It's the same one, but those three, see, it's three. You may see three, but it's one. In the beginning was the Word, one. The Word, two, was with God, that's two. And the Word, three, was God, that's three. That's 1, 2, 3. Count the number of times you see the word there, W-O-R-D. That's the secret. That's the mystery. Look at the number of times you see W-O-R-D in all caps. Well, capital W-O-R-D. See that W? That W stands for Wab. Wab, which is the 6 Hebrew alphabet or character, created the W. If you remove the W from O-R-D and replace it with L, then you have Lord. Try it. Remove the W. And now replace it with a capital L. Now you have Lord 3 times. And all 3 are one. I repeat, in the beginning was the Word or Lord. And the Word or Lord was with God. And the Lord or Word was God. See, it was God. How was it God? Because it became Lord. They removed the L and placed the W there. That means the Lord was God. Now let's read it again. I'm going to read it again, and I'm going to remove the W and use L only and see if it makes sense to you. In the beginning was the Lord. The Lord was with God. And the Lord was God. And they changed it to Word. Why? Because they didn't want you to know that the same was in the beginning with God in verse 2. And see, all things were made by him. Who? The Lord. And without him, who? The Lord, was not anything made that was made. Now in him was life, in verse 4, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. In verse 5. Now, verse 6, remember that's 6, that's number 6, that's Wav, the 6 Hebrew symbol. There was a man who was sent from God. There was a man sent from God whose name was John, or Yohanan. This is the same Yohanan who they had blasphemed after he was finished and recalled back, after he completed what he had come to do. This is the same John whom sat in that office in 1986 and told that scribe, that subscriber, or that scribe from Time Magazine, still a subscriber, that he's John. It's the same John the Baptist. So there was a man who was sent from God. See, if he was God, then how could God himself to do his work? There was a man sent from God, the Father, whose name was John the Baptist. The same came for a witness. The same came for a witness in verse 7 to bear witness of the light. See the capital L that they stole from the O-R-D? That all men through him might believe, because not all are going to believe. Might believe. See, John was not that light. Now, that's bad news for a lot of you who are watching this video and receiving this revelation today, the secret. Yahweh ben Yahweh was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of the light. Now, if you look behind me on this video, to my right or to the left of your screen, you will see a book that John announced in 1992 to identify himself as John, but you just did not believe it. As it said, they might believe in verse 7. You didn't believe it then, and you don't believe it now, that John was sent to bear witness of that light. And that book that you see in back of me, or to my right, to the left of your screen, is the same book that I wrote, Micah, that John bear witness to and of after he read it, entitled it. And he sent it out into the world as he was behind bars, to let the world know that the Son, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, is here. I repeat in verse 8, he was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of the light. And there's the book. And since then, the Peace Foundation took the book out of circulation so that you wouldn't know who the Son is. You thought the Son died in 2007. You called him Hulan Mitchell Jr. He was not. And that body, of course, that body was cremated for a reason. God cremated the body. The Father cremated that vessel so no one would be confused. Had that body remained here, even intact, even in the grave, then you would have been confused. Some would have went and tried to exhume that body from the grave and see if it's still there. So in order to avoid the foolishness that men would do, it was cremated. And the ash was spread in an undisclosed place that you don't have to know where. But as I repeat again in verse 8, he was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of the light. And that was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. So what was John doing back in the days? Protecting the Son. And he's always done that. He protected the Son. You can watch all the videos that you like of him that records that vessel he used. And you will see that every one of them, he was protecting the Son. Even the books he wrote while in prison, he wrote for him, he wrote for the Son. After the Peace Foundation took my book out of circulation, then John started writing for the Son, as the Son. He started writing as the Son to continue to do the work that he was sent to do, to hide and protect the Son from Satan, the devil, and especially from the fifth angel, until it was the time to come. Just as over 2024 years ago with Secrets. Why? Because he was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not, in verse 10. Why is that? Because he came into his own, and his own received him not, as he's doing today. That could not be in who many people call Yahweh ben Yahweh in verse 11, because they come to him. He came into his own, and those who he came to that love Yahweh ben Yahweh in that appellation, they received him. But when it came to Micah, they received him not. Some even was told to run away from Micah when you see Micah. I repeat in verse 11, he came into his own. Even in 1980, 1990, 1995, 1992. In 1992, he came to his own during a meeting. And in that meeting, during that meeting, they told him to get out. That's fulfilled in verse 11. His own receives him not. But after that, after he returned from the Bahamas in 2007, Micah, who many call Micah, even the fifth angel called himself Adonai 720, he calls him Micah Israel. He calls me Micah. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born, in verse 13, not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God, of God. And see, the word from verse 1 fulfills verse 14, as well as for John chapter 5. See, and the word was made flesh. From December 27th, 1953 to September 27th, 1954, the word that was blood and water was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, who placed him in a womb, full of grace and truth, with a Y chromosome. Now, I also invite you to, and especially U.S. government that's watching this video, I invite you to pull my medical records. You can get them, but you already have them. That's why you're keeping it away from the American people. You're keeping my medical records away from this planet, that you will discover, and doctors already have, that I do have in my blood 23 X chromosomes and 1 Y chromosome. Go check it out for yourself. My blood type right now is O negative, as it's always been. It's O negative. I have a very rare blood type, O negative blood. Now let's go back to 1 John for a moment, I John chapter 5. Since we use that as a reference, John chapter 1. Back to I John chapter 5. And we left off at verse 6. As I repeat, in verse 6 of it from the beginning, as I quote, "This is he that came by water and blood, even the Christ, not by water only, but by water and blood. And it is the Spirit that bears witness, because the Spirit is truth. And I am the Spirit of truth." According to John chapter 16, verse 13. Verse 7, "For there are three that bear record in heaven." Now here's the three. Here's the three. Verse 7. The Father that sent John, the Word that he sent John to bear witness of, and the Holy Ghost, which is John himself, also known by the devils of the world as Hulan Mitchell Jr., and known by the hard-headed people of my people of Israel, the tribe of Judah especially, as in English, by the English slave masters appellation, Yahweh ben Yahweh, in quotes. And these three are one. See? These three are one. But after John was beheaded over 2,025 years ago, after he was beheaded, then John left and went up, took that vessel back up that he used. And it was only left with two. It was only left with two at the time. And that's why I went around after John was beheaded, sent to prison and beheaded. I went around and said that I and my Father are one. That's two. I and my Father are one, just as stated in John chapter 5, verse 43. I and my Father are one. Or is that John chapter, I believe it's John chapter 5, verse 43. If not, is there? It's in fact, let's get the correct, because I come in the volume of the book. You don't know what that means. I come in the volume of the book. So what's the volume of the book? My father in that interview said he come in the volume of the book. What does that mean? You think it's like a book volume. John 10:30. So let's make that correction. That'll be in John chapter 10, verse. I and my Father are one. John chapter 5, verse 43. I'm stuck on that because that's where Satan the devil is. You have your father the devil. You're stuck on the fifth angel. But we'll get to that in a moment. But let's go back to now 1 John chapter 5. I repeat verse 7. "For there are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost. And these three are one." That was then. And 8. "Now, and there are three that bear witness in earth, the Spirit, and the water, and the blood." That would be me. That's one. And I confess that. Now you can challenge this, and I accept your challenge, and I want you to challenge it. And I want you to prove me as a liar. And as you do, make sure you record doing your challenge. Every word I'm saying is to prove it. I repeat, 8. "And there are three witnesses in earth." So you have the Father, which is heaven, and then you have the earth. You have the Father in verse 7. He's heaven. The Father is heaven in verse 7. And the Son is verse 8. And look at the 8, says two. So earth is what? Is the Spirit of truth, and the water that we mentioned up in verse 6, and the blood that we mentioned up in verse 6. And these three agree in one. Agree. Verse 9. "If we receive the witness of men, the witness of God is greater. For there is the witness of God. For this is the witness of God, which he hath testified of his Son." Now, Let that soak in your mind for a moment that God witnessed his son. And this is the witness of God, but he testifies of his son. That means God had to be here to testify of his son. But according to what this man is saying, this fifth angel, no one has ever seen God, and God is not human. But he that believeth on the Son of God, in verse 10, had the witness in himself. He believeth not God, had not him, had made him a liar. Why? Because he believed not the record that God gave of his son. He believed not the record that God gave of his son. I'm going to go down quickly to verse 8, same chapter. How's that? Verse 18. We know that whosoever is born of God sinneth not, but he begotten of God keepeth himself. And the wicked one toucheth him not. Verse 19. And we know that we are of God, the whole world lieth in wickedness. The whole world lieth in wickedness. Verse 20. And we know that the Son of God is come and has given us an understanding that we may know him that is true. And we are in him that is true, even in his Son, the Christ. This is the true God and eternal life. I repeat verse 20. And we know that the Son of God is come. Some do not know. In fact, many don't know. And has given us an understanding. And this is also not only did it happen yesterday, but today. It's the same yesterday, today, and forever. According to Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, the same Christ, the same Son, that we may know him that is true. And we are in him that is true, even in his Son, the Christ. This is the true God and eternal life. And finally, in verse 21, little children, keep yourselves from idols, especially those of men, even that they put on YouTube with idols and makeshift gods and sound effects that they would put. I'm going to get to that in a moment. Amen. In verse 21. Now, don't forget, I said that because it was told that in this accusation of the fifth angel, also known as Adoniah, 7:20, that I'm lying to the people and that God is not human and no one has seen God. Well, let's go to the Old Testament for a moment. Go to Exodus chapter 33 for a moment. Exodus chapter 33. Let's leave 1 John, Exodus chapter 33. And I'm going to read verse 11. Exodus 33, verse 11. As I quote, and the Lord spake unto Moses face to face. Face to face. And I want you to take notice that Lord is all caps. That represents God, God himself. Spake unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh to his friend. As a man speaketh unto his friend. And he turned again into the camp. But servant Joshua, the son of Nun, which is the same as a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle. Can you not see this human vessel, or what you think is a human vessel, this vessel I'm using right now, that I'm going to have for about forever? Can you not see that there's a young man in this vessel? Really look like to you that I'm here on this planet for 70 years out of that womb since September 27, 1954. Do I really look like that to you? Did you know I'm going backward? And I know that I have something on top of my head right now and you can't see it. That's because I'm a sect. I am a sect. S-E-C-T. I am sect, S-E-C-T. But you don't know what that means, but you go into it in a moment. I am going backward. And although you cannot see my hair on the top, my hair is growing back on the top. I did not color my hair. The hair that you see protruding from under this cap on the top, it's natural. I do not use just for men, neither do I use just for women. I do not use anything artificial on my body or my skin or my hair. Nothing artificial, all natural. This is my natural hair. Now I would like for you to go and do some research and go check out some other 70-year-old vessels of human terrestrial vessels that you will see run around this planet. Go and compare them to what you're looking at right now. My beard is white, just as prophesied. And this is what John bear witness of. This is Revelation chapter 1. My beard is white. I'm going to complete this and I'm going to show you the prophecy of that in verse 11. Joshua the son of Nun, a young man, departed not of the tabernacle. A young man departed not of the tabernacle. Why? Because Yahshua is the tabernacle. That's why he departed not out of it. Yahshua, the son of Nun, is the tabernacle, according to Revelation chapter 21 and verse 3. That's the tabernacle. Joshua is the tabernacle, who is with men. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 3. Now, let's prove again. You said that God is not human because you don't know how to read the Bible. It caused you to say that. Now go for a moment to Exodus chapter 15. Come on, right after Genesis. Exodus, the next book of your Pentateuch or your Septuagint or your Torah, your Septuagint, your Pentateuch. Anything that you want to use, even the Freemasons have a Bible. You want to look at your Calvin version, your NIV, the New International Version. You want your NLT, the New Living Translation. That's what you like, the NIV. So go to your NIV if you'd like, to Exodus chapter 15, verse 3. Go to your New Living Translation if you like. Go to that if you like, whatever version you like to use. I'm going to read chapter 15 and verse 3 of Exodus. And that reads, as I quote from the KJV, the Lord, in all caps, is a man of war. I repeat the first 6 words. Lord is a man of war. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I left out the. Let's get the first 6 again. Okay, 7. We make it 7 to complete it and make it perfect. The Lord is a man of war. The word not is not there. It does not read, the Lord is not a man, comma, of war, that he should lie. It's not there. I repeat, again, just before the colon introduction, the Lord is a man of war. Now the introduction after that, the colon that represents an introduction, the colon of its punctuation mark in English. What comes after that is euphemism, is a lie, because the Lord is not his name. See, that's the lie. If you want to accuse someone of being a liar, then accuse those 47 scholars of King James or King Jacob, the first king of England to bear a Hebrew name, Jacob, and those 7 elders that helped them translate the scrolls. Go call them liars. They are the ones who changed the truth of God into a lie, not Micah. I'm going to prove that. I don't have to, but I'm going to show you that. The Lord, in all caps, is not his name. They have the Lord is his name. But the emphasis that we're bringing to your attention today, even those who are watching, is that the Lord is a man. Now, with that said, go to Revelation chapter 1 for a moment. Revelation chapter 1. You're confused. You think Hugh Mitchell, which is not the Messiah of the Old Testament, bring him to the New. He was the Messiah. So you don't know what Messiah means. Messiah means anointed one. Although Messiah is also known as one who delivered the people back to the land. Remember, Moshe did not deliver the children of Israel over in the Jordan. Yahshua did. But back over 2020 some years ago, there were no people to be delivered. So how could the Christ even be the Messiah? I never said I'm the Messiah. Never did. So look at Revelation chapter 1. So you don't be confused as to who is who and why that body was cremated. And we admit that. We want you to know that. It didn't die of prostate cancer or colon cancer, whatever you want to accuse. It didn't die of that. It was taken. Ma'ab used an excuse for medical sciences and the medical doctors this planet to have an excuse to write off on the death certificate what was the cause of death or the autopsy, if there was one performed. So you must look at verse 1 of Revelation chapter 1. It says the revelation of the Christ. That's the first thing it's telling you. All 403 verses that follows this is of the Christ. The whole book called Revelation is of the Christ, the Son of God. This is the revelation of the Christ, which God gave unto him. See, God gave to the Christ these revelations. God did, the Father. Why? To show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. Now, that's the three. Remember, there's three. God, the Son, the Holy Spirit, which is John. So God gave to the Christ these revelations. And then he sent John down to bear witness of them and to signify them. Read it and see. I'm going to start over. The revelation of the Christ, which God gave unto him, the Christ, to show unto his servants, the Christ's servants, things which must shortly come to pass, semicolon. And after he did that, then he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant, John. So he sent the revelations to his son by John, who came to bear witness of what he wrote and what he gave to the son. Read verse 2. See, now we right back on chapter 1, verse 1 and verse 2, and 3, 4, and 5, etc. in John chapter 1. Look at verse 2 of Revelation chapter 1. Who bear record of the word of God. Who? John. And the testimony of the Christ, and of all things that he saw when he was here with the Christ. Takes you right back to the book that's in back of me, to my right and left of your screen. Verse 3, Revelation chapter 1. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of his prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. The time is at hand. So now you get the mystery. Those who are waking up to this truth, you should be celebrating that you now have the veil removed from your heart, as I was promised I would do. As it was promised that Christ would come and remove the veil from off of your heart. In your heart is mind. It's mind. It's a mental faculty. I'm going to go over that in a moment too. Reveal that. And further on down in first chapter of Revelation, it says at verse 7, behold, he cometh with clouds, not in the clouds. He cometh with clouds. They changed the L. They placed the L there, and they placed the L and U there instead of the R and the W. It should be crowds. But they put the CLOUDS there, the cloud of your mind. They gave you a cloudy mind that you wouldn't be able to read this. That's why it's blessed he that readeth, because you can't read it. I'm the one to read it. And verse 7, and every eye shall see him. What every eye? Every eye on YouTube and Facebook shall see him. And they also which pierced him in videos, in particular the fifth angel, also known as Adonai 720. Even those who pierced him are looking like Adonai is looking right now. And all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, amen. See, I am Alpha and Omega, but I never said that. That's Greek. I said I'm Aleph and Tav, the first and the last. See, I am Aleph and Tav, the beginning and the ending. The beginning of Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, all the way to Revelation chapter 21, verse 21. the beginning and the ending, said the Lord, which is and which was and which is to come, the Almighty. Now I see, now John takes over in verse 9. I John, see, I John, like in I John chapter 5, who also am your brother and not the Messiah or the Christ. I John, who also am your brother. And why else do you think we called him Ak Moshe when he first came here in 1979 to Miami? We called him Ak Moshe. And companion tribulation. And the kingdom of patience of the Christ was in the isles that is called Patmos, for the word of God that was made flesh, and for the testimony of the Christ. So you who think that Yahweh ben Yahweh was the son or the Messiah, then let me ask you this question. Where is he today? Where is he? If you live in a Christian mind, you have a Christian mindset. You have a reprobate mind because you think he's going to come back and knock on your door and say, Shalom Aleichem. He would never say that because that wasn't said anyway in Luke chapter 24 and verse 36, 37. That was me who said Shalom Aleichem to my disciples after I was resurrected on the third day. I'm the only one who revealed to you Shalom opposed to Shalom. John did not do that. John never taught you the difference between Shalom and Shalom. He never taught you the difference between that. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, said the Lord, which is and which was and which is to come, as I repeat in verse 8, the Almighty. And in verse 9, I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation, and the kingdom of and the patience of the Christ, was in the isles that is called Patmos, for the word of God and for the testimony of the Christ. And when you look at verse 13, because it's not the subject, when you look at verse 14, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. His eyes were as a flame of fire. See, now, if you look at my previous part 1 of the same subject, this titled The Fifth Angel Revealed, you will see I have on a white headband, a white head wrap. And I have the same beard. I cannot take this beard off. The only way I can take this beard off is to shave it off, and I'm not going to do that. But that will explain Revelation chapter 1 and verse 14. The head and hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. His eyes were as a flame of fire. Why was his eyes as a flame of fire? Because he would be wearing, even my eye pupils, my pupils, a flame of fire. But when I put on glass over my eyes and you see them in the light, it becomes like a flame of fire in the glass of the light in the glass as a flame of fire. Revelation, secrets. Now let's go back to where we started and why we're here. Go back to the rest of that video. We now have cleared up, I'm lying to the people. He mentioned, we had one video that I don't even know how they call this name, where they get this name from, how they call this God. I'm not going to use that name because that's not God's name. They don't know God's name, but how he said he's not a human. But go back and complete some more of that video.
Check this out. I'm doing a little quick reaction on one of my own videos. And but the title of this video is going to be called Stop Lying to the People. So why I'm doing this is because a lot of people are falling for this nonsense. This buffoonery, straight up.
That's real talk.
Y'all see this dude right here, man. Charles Horner ain't no my shit.
Fact.
I don't know why he lying to the people on all these videos, pushing all this hula and mental doctrine. We already know mental died of cancer, rectal cancer, and prostate cancer, and he was cremated. You know what I'm saying? Dude's opinion that he pope. You know what I'm saying? And plus, you know what I'm saying? The nation of Yahweh are arguing about his ass, who gonna worship it, who gonna blow it in half on October 7th. But anyhow, check this out. I'm doing a little quick reaction on one of my own videos. And but the title of this video is gonna be called Stop Lying to the People. So why I'm doing this is because a lot of people are falling for this nonsense.
Okay, that's okay. That's because that's just a short clip. Let's go back now There was something in one of his videos. He said that I'm a set leader. Some say I'm a set leader. That's SECT, and that we are in a cult. So I want you, before you go back to the highlight image in the back of Elijah. See, I'm also known as Elijah. If you, just in case, just to quickly reveal that the reason why when I come on, you see Elijah a painting of Elijah in the background, because that's another one of the appellations. And I was also known at one time in the history of this world as Elijah that went up and was not seen again. So that brings to the question. That brings us the question of Proverbs chapter 30, verse. Who is it that ascended up into heaven and descended? I'm going to answer the question. In fact, I'm being forced to. You can't. I have an ear pod in my. I can't see it or hear it, but my eye was telling me to reveal that. So let's go to Proverbs. Go to your Bible. Go to Proverbs chapter 30 for a moment, and let's look at verse 4. Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 4. Because they don't know the name of the God of the Hebrews. They really don't. I'm the only one that knows. And that means it's going to take us to another scripture. Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 4. You have it? Okay, that reads, I quote, who hath ascended up into heaven or descended? Now, that's the answer to the question. That's the question's answered, but the first word is who. Who is the one that did that? Who is the one who ascended and descended? Also known as Elijah, also known as the Christ. Here it is again. Who hath gathered the wind in his fists? That's also the same answer. Who? The Christ or Elijah. And the fist, gather wind in his fists, I mean, you have to have a big hand to do that. The span of my hand is hidden in Isaiah chapter 40. The span of my hand. Who hath bound the waters in a garment? And I revealed that to you a moment ago in 1 John chapter 5 of the water and the blood. It's the same thing. In a garment. The garment represents the metaphor of a vessel, a terrestrial vessel, the garment. Now that water is in a vessel, garment. Who hath established all the ends of the earth? Now, the earth is round, so the earth could not have, you thought it was a planet, it's not. This planet is round, it's not the earth. Here's telling you that the earth has ends of it. Establish all the ends of the earth. The ends of the earth are the hands and the feet of the earth. That's the ends of the earth. The earth is a man. His hands, his feet, the ends. What's the end of the earth? The feet and the hands. What is his name? What is his son's name? So who established the ends of the earth? God did. God established the ends of the earth as he placed him in the womb, his son. What is his name? It ain't God. It ain't Yahushua or Yahushua or whoever y'all call it. It's not that. That's not his name. And what is his son's name? If thou canst tell. You cannot tell because you don't even know the son's name. You think it's Charles Lawrence Johnson or Mika Israel. It is not. Have you seen and perfected or studied Revelation chapter 19, verse 12? Or even Revelation in chapter 3, where it says, if you be faithful, I'll write upon you the name of my God and write upon you my new name. You better read it. It's there in Revelation chapter 3. Now, with that said, who is it? Let's prove that who is not a question. Go to Micah now, chapter 6. Micah chapter 6, my book. Not in English. I drafted this in Hebraic. These are the results of scrolls translated. Look at verse 9 of Micah chapter 6. That reads, and I quote, the Lord's voice crieth into the city. The Lord's own voice crieth into the city. And the man of wisdom shall see thy name. Hear ye the rod. And who hath appointed it? Now, here you see who again. at the end of this verse of Micah chapter 6, verse 9, you see who? Right? Okay. So what is who? What is who? Who is a pronoun in the English's vocabulary, idiom? So it being that who is a pronoun, then why would there be a question mark at the end of those verses or sentences in Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 4? Do you see a question mark after the word it in Micah chapter 6, verse 9? No, because who is a pronoun? Pronoun what? Of who? A person. So who is a person? You can look in your dictionaries, find that. You know, by now you should have your study tools out anyway. You should have a dictionary tool. You need an encyclopedia. You're going to need an encyclopedia in a moment. I'm going to share one with you, but you need an encyclopedia, dictionary. Of course, you have your Bible. You should have your synonym finder. So now I go back to Proverbs. In fact, you don't have to because I asked the question. Elijah is the one who ascended up and came down, and the Christ is the one who ascended up, came down. Same soul, different body. Can't you see the back? When you look at that artifacts that's the back of me when I come on, even as I go off, can't you see this? It's the same skin complexion? It is the same skin tone. The same skin tone. It's brass. See, it'd be like fine brass. See, my skin would be like fine. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm not going to. Let's go to, I was told I'm heading a cult. Come in the volume of the book. Study volume. The volume of the book means that you have to turn your volume up or turn it down when I come on to hear it, to listen to the book. The city, the Lord's voice cried to the city. How? On the recording, the volume. So turn your volume up. I come in the volume of the book. All of it. So I was told I've gotten people in the cult. I'm lying to the people. So let's go to your concordance and type in cult. Just type in cult. That's C-U-L-T. C-U-L-T. Right? And let's see what we get. You have it? King James Version. It's not there. The English word that you only know today as cult with a C, C-U-L-T, is not there. You say cult with a C. It's spelled C-U-L-T, but you say cult with a K. Well, it is found in other Bibles, like the new NLT, the NLT Bible, the New Living Translation Bible. You find it there. And in the NLT Bible, it's only found twice. You have it there? And that's Acts chapter 24. Two different verses in that chapter. Acts chapter 24 is found twice. I'm going to read it. You have it? Okay, in Acts chapter 24 and verse 5, in the NLT, the New Living Translation Bible, it says, I quote, "We have found this man to be a troublemaker who is constantly stirring up riots among the Jews or Yehudites all over the world. He is a ringleader of the cult known as the Nazarenes." Imagine that. Verse 14 of the same chapter of Acts says in that Bible, I quote, "But I admit that I follow the way, which they call a cult. I worship the God of our ancestors, and I firmly believe the Jewish law and everything written in the prophets." So apparently this must be Paul or Saul referring to the Christ whom he was following in the temple. And you can confirm that in verse 10 of the same chapter. The governor then mentioned for Paul to speak. So, of course, Paul is the same as Saul. So Saul is saying he's a Hebrew from Yehuda, and he believed the man that he was following that they call Christ today. But he also said, KJV, and let's see what word they really had there in Acts chapter 24, in the KJV in verse 4. Is that where we're going? Acts chapter 24, verse 5, rather. Acts chapter 24, verse 5. Let's see what they had, or what they have there, translation of the KJV, opposed to the NLT. Acts chapter 24. And we're going to read verse 5. And that says, I quote, "For we have found this man a pestilent fellow and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes." Of the sect of the Nazarenes. Now look at verse 25 of the same chapter. Let's see what that says. As he reasoned of righteousness, temperance, and judgment to come, Felix trembled and answered, "Go thy way for this time." Am I reading that correct? No. We want verse 25, 24, 25. Verse 14, pardon me. Verse 14. I had a one on verse 14. "But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, and believe in all things which are written in the law and the prophets." Did I read that correctly? I don't see sect or cult in verse 14. Acts chapter 24, verse 14. "But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, believe in all things which are written in the law and the prophets." I'm still looking for it. I know I'm looking at this Bible. I have Acts chapter 24. The NLT says in verse 14 that, "But I admit that I follow the way which they call a cult." That's in the NLT. But when I look at the Acts chapter 24 in the KJV, in verse 14, I see, "But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers." So they changed cult to heresy, or heresy to cult. "Believe in all things which are written in the law and in the prophets." I don't see cult in the KJV. So that means we'd have to go back to verse 5, and we have to go along with the word sect that they placed there in the KJV, opposed to the word cult in the NLT. So now let's see if we can find sect, S-E-C-T, in the KJV and what that means. Sect. So you should write it down. You who are following, you should also have something to write with and tablet to write on, take notes. We're going to go to S-E-C-T in the KJV Bible, as just did in your concordance. And wouldn't you know that the only place that S-E-C-T is found in the King James Version Bible is a book called the Acts. the book called the Acts, of subject, the third time in verse 5 of Acts chapter 24, that we just read. I'm going to read it now from the KJV. I quote, "For we have found this man a pestilent fellow and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes." Now we have SECT, so you should make a note of that. And you're going to find this word set under G139. G139, that's the first place. And it says, what's the sect? It says, of taking capture. For example, storming a city. You have a dictionary there too, don't you? Go to the dictionary and just put in your dictionary sect, S-E-C-T. And let's see with the definition of, I told you to get a dictionary earlier, a few moments ago. What's a sect? The first place, if you should have, I'm in my dictionary online computer software. I have a group, dictionary.com. You have it? Mm-hmm. What dictionary do you have? I have the dictionary.com. I have, the Oxford. I have the Oxford dictionary that says a group of people with somewhat different religious beliefs, in parentheses, typically regarded as heretical, and quote, in parentheses, out of parentheses, from those of a larger group to which they belong. And then I go down to the Cambridge Dictionary. In the Cambridge Dictionary, is defined a set as, and that's S-E-C-T, as a religious group that has separated from a larger religion and is considered to have extreme or unusual beliefs or customs. So, according to those two definitions of sect, I think it's also safe to say that Christianity is also a sect. And I also say, and I think it's safe to say that if people break away from the Hebrew Israelites and form their own group, it's called a sect. Especially if they want to be people who they're not, or they proclaim a name that they're not. They become their own sect leader. For example, Adoniah 720 becomes a leader of a sect, according to the definition. I'm looking in the Britannica on the same website, the same computer software. I see in the Britannica, it says that a sect is a religious group that is a smaller part of a larger group and whose members all share similar beliefs. For example, they have Buddhist sects and a set of Judaism. Number 2 says a religious or political group that is connected to a larger group, but that has beliefs that differ greatly from those of the main group. I know that I have not taken my people away from the original God of the Hebrews. I will not do that. I would never do that. I was looking to see if there's another one, another encyclopedia. And for example, okay, how about the online Wikipedia? The online Wikipedia said that a sect is a subgroup of a religious, political, or philosophical belief system, typically emerging as an offshoot of a larger organization. Now, we're not a religious. Our culture is not religion. We're not related to any religion. We do not believe in religion. Neither do we practice religions that was made by the nations of the world, not by Hebrew culture. We're Hebrew celestial beings. We do not have a religion. Neither are we political. Neither do we have our own philosophical beliefs. We are true. This is the truth. Originally, the term referred specifically to religious groups that have separated from a main body, but it can now apply to any group that diverges from a larger organization to follow a distinct set of beliefs and practices. Sects often form when there is a perception of heresy, either within the subgroup or from the larger group. In an Indian context, set refers to an organized tradition. That is not us. We are not a set. But I tell you what that is for those who are curious. This set that we just read in the King James Version Bible in Acts chapter 24 and verse 5, when you look at this word set in the Bible, in fact, if we go to that meaning, in Greek, again, it takes us to G139. Going back to that, G139 takes us to the first. It also takes us to choosing a choice, that which is chosen. It also goes down to number 4 that says a body of men following their own tenets, like a sect or party. It also says that a set is of the Sadducees, a set is of the Pharisees, a set of the Christians. As dissensions arising from diversity of opinions and aims. So when someone says that I'm a set leader, then it becomes their opinion, and that's all right. It's okay to have an opinion of me being a set leader, but you hadn't broken down set yet. You going by what the white man is put in front of your face as a slave of the white man's slave, as your slave master. But they put these words of the letters together, or 24 of them, from A to Z, as a reminder that X and O is not a part of their letters. That's part of the chromosomes, X and O. They put this here for you to deceive your mind. That's what Satan did to you, deceive the whole world. Because this set comes from, remember, cult took us to set. That took us to set. Now, when you go back to cult, let's go back to cult for a moment. Actually, before we do, stay at G139 for a moment. Let's break it down more so that you can see what a set is, according to the Greeks. When you break it down more from its etymology, by the root of etymology, a set is also under G138. A set is to take for oneself, to prefer, to choose by vote, elect to office. Now, here comes a secret. I almost left this without revealing the secret. A set is also was defined by the Greeks in their definitions, in their concordance, even under G142. 142. A set is known to raise up, elevate, and lift up, to move from its place in those meanings. Also to carry off and to carry away with one, to appropriate that of what is taken, even to take and apply to any use, and to take away from another what is his or what is committed to him to take by force. Number 6. That is from G142 of the Greek word aro. Aro. That's what they put here for set, that they have you believing in. That comes from, is a synonymous word to cult. That will explain why they put cult there in some Bibles opposed to set. Why? Well, I knew that in the last days, which are now, I knew that in the last days, some were going to call and see me and call me a leader of a cult or set. That's why what I did was secret. I placed a Hebrew word for cult that they would translate into cult. That would be the opposite of what I am. But also in the last days revealed to the world who I am and why I use cult as an opposite, and why you're going to find cult as the opposite of who I am. Yes, in other words, yes, on your layman's term, on your level of mind, I'm a cult leader. I'm a cult. I'm the cult. Now let's prove it. Go back to your concordance and type in CULT. See, we stopped at the NLT Bible. We stopped at the TULT Bible. Okay. Now we're going to go to another Bible. This cult under CULT is another Bible. That's why you're not going to find the King James Version. Let's go to the English Standard Version, the ESV Bible. Just click on that for a moment. And it's going to take us to Genesis chapter 38 and verse 21. So this cult is a synonymous term in translation from another Hebrew word that means something totally different. It becomes a man. I'm going to read from the English Standard Version, ESV Version Bible, Genesis chapter 38, verse 21, that said, and I quote, and he asked the men of the place, where is the cult prostitute who was at Enim at the roadside? And they said, no cult prostitute has been here. And further down in Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 17, it says, none of the daughters of Israel shall be a cult prostitute, and none of the sons of Israel shall be a cult prostitute. That's Deuteronomy 23, 17. And in 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 12, it says, he put away the male cult prostitute out of the land and removed all the idols that his fathers had made. Now, let's go for a moment back to Genesis chapter 38 and verse 21. And let's see what that is in the King James Version Bible. Genesis chapter 38 and verse 21. And that reads, then he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the harlot that was opened by the wayside? And they said, there is no harlot in this place. Verse 22 says, and he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there is no harlot in this place. Now let's go back to the King James Version Bible, that according to Deuteronomy 23:17 and the English Standard Version. Let's go to Deuteronomy 23:17, the King James Version Bible, and see what that says. Deuteronomy 23:17. I quote, there shall no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. So this verse in chapter 23 of Deuteronomy and verse 17 gives us the word sodomite. So now we went from cult to sodomite. So let's go down to sodomite. And let's see, go to your concordance and type in SODOMITE. SODOMITE is going to take you to one verse and one chapter of the King James Version Bible. And that would be the same Deuteronomy 23:17. Take a look. You have it? It says male prostitute, a male temple prostitute under H6945 is Hebrew. Hebrew H6945 takes it to male temple prostitute. However, it comes from the etymology under H6942 that says that it is to consecrate someone. Do you see it? Go to H6942. Yeah, I knew that they were going to come the last day for the English mindset from the English slave master and called me a cult leader. So what I did was to defend myself from their reprobate minds and to also deceive the English-speaking people, the English land people, England. I left the transliteration from Hebrew, Kadesh, with Kof, Dalit, Sheen, from right to left. Kof, Dalit, Sheen, Kadosh. That would hide how I would be hallowed, to show oneself sacred and majestic, and to separate or to set apart as sacred and consecrate and dedicate. I left cult there so they can translate it back. I left the Hebrew word so they can translate it to cult, and I can come along in the last days and take it back to where it comes from to show how devoted I am to the God of the Hebrews, to keep oneself apart and separated from the rest of the devils of the land, and all the devils of the land, the rest of the people, to cause himself to be hallowed of God. And that's in the definition of H6942 is there, to keep oneself apart or separated, and to cause himself to be hallowed of God, to be observed as holy, and to consecrate oneself. That is who, yeah, that's cult. So I think it's safe to say that I'm a cult leader, and I appreciate you recognizing that. I'm a cult leader. I lead people to be separated from the rest of the land, separate themselves from the people of the land, and become hallowed, become holy, to maintain their sacredism, become sacred, to show oneself sacred and majestic, to be the majesties of this planet, the angels, the holy angels, to be holy. See it here, to be holy. That comes from cult. That comes from cult. Why else do you think? Now go to Genesis for a moment. Actually, Revelation. Go to the Revelation. Let me just finish this. The fifth angel. This is part 2 of the fifth angel revealed. So go back to Revelation. We left off at verse 8 last week. We're in Revelation chapter 9, by the way. Go back to Revelation chapter 9. That's where the fifth angel was sealed. We left off at verse 8. And just for the record, reiterate. Verse 8 says, we left off at, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And we went over the teeth. You can reiterate that and go back to part 1, and you can see the revelation of that. As we conclude now in verse 9 of part 2, and they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And that's what you hear at the beginning of his videos, the clapping, the chariots. He has all kinds of sound effects. And you know that, Adonai, you have all kinds of sound effects on your videos in the beginning. That's why you place them in your soul. Can I help it? I made you do it. Verse 10 says, and they had tails like unto scorpions. And we went over that. And there were stings in their tails. That with tails, so you have T-A-I-L-S. That's T-A-L-E-S. They have tails. They're telling tales through their videos and their testimonies. They are tails, and their tails are stinging like scorpions. There's a homophone, tails, in their tails. And there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. Now go back to your videos, and you can see videos that go way back 5 months ago that you start talking about Mika, Israel, and Charles Johnson 5 months ago. Your 5 months are up. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon. You see it? Abaddon. So what's Abaddon? See, Abaddon means ruin. We're going to go to that. Abaddon means ruin. So let's look it up. Abaddon. In Revelation, it's the only place that you're going to see it. Abaddon, Abaddon. The only place in the Bible you're going to find Abaddon. And it's going to take you back to the Hebrew word, because the Greek, this was not originally hand drafted in Greek. It means destruction. But it comes from the Hebrew word Abaddon under H11. That's where it started, a place of destruction. Look at your videos. In the beginning, you put places of destruction. However, the etymology of where it originally came from and was sealed was Strong's H6. H6, which means to vanish and to perish and to go astray, be destroyed. That means today the fifth angel is being destroyed. I preserved it to be destroyed under what they said was a Greek word, Abaddon, that actually is Abad. Abad. That's Aleph, Beth, Dalet, Abad, H6, Abad. That means to go astray and be destroyed. And you are most certainly going astray. You are being terminated, exterminated. Exterminated. There it is. To be exterminated. And to be lost, to be strayed, to destroy. I'm putting you to death. I'm putting all your accusations of Mika Israel and Charles Johnson to death by these two parts of the fifth angel revealed. Also of a divine judgment, of divine judgment. That means you also object the name of kings. Object name of kings. This coming from Abaddon. Abaddon. Revelation chapter 9, verse 11. But in the Greek tongue, his name is Apollon. Apollon. Or Apollyon. Apollyon. In fact, the robot, let the robot pronounce it for you. Listen. Apollyon. I don't speak Greek. We created it, but I don't speak it. That means destroyer. That's under G623. G623, destroyer. You want it to be a destroyer. Well, that's why you put those artifacts and those sound effects, those monsters that you put, the animation you put in the beginning of your videos, because you're a destroyer, even the one with the sickle in his hand. You put a symbol there with some kind of being, some type of demon standing with a sickle in his hand to destroy. Yes, that's you, the fifth angel. And finally, in verse 12, Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. See, one woe is past. That was part one. And behold, there come two woes more hereafter. So that's the end of the first woe. That's part 1 and 2. One woe is past. You're the one woe. Now I have to go over two more. There are two more woes out there that I'm going to get. But before we go to Revelation now, chapter 11, so you can see why I hid the Sodom, why Sodomite was hidden. Go to Revelation. What's a Sodomite? I just gave you Sodomite. Revelation chapter 11, verse 8, it was hidden. And I read Revelation chapter 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So our Lord was crucified by the appellation Sodom and Egypt, which is a great city. The word Sodom means burning, according to G 4670, but it comes from the original Hebrew, H 5467. That means burning. What burning? That means that the Sodomite or the Sodomites that were coming out of the fifth seal or the fifth angel, they come from the fifth angel. The fifth angel will come in the last days with sound effects and with autographs and its videos that will signify burning. it would show signs of something burning, like fire at the beginning of a sodomite. Now, there's more than one. So that means you have to put an S on the end of sodomite to have sodomites. And when you do, you're going to find that all the sodomites are in 1 Kings and 2 Kings. That also takes you right back to the male prostitute, the male temple prostitute that came from cult, that came from being separated and consecrated. All coming from Set. So let's go back to cult for a minute. C-U-L-T. There is no cult. Why? Because there is no C. You say cult with C-U-L-T, but that's a K sound. There's a K sound. Go use Strong's Concordance and type in K-U-L-T. I hear cult. I hear sodomite. I hear sodomite in the word Sodom in Revelation chapter 11, verse 8 to represent myself. That's a cult. Sodomite. So you're absolutely correct that I'm a cult leader. I am. I'm admitting that to the whole planet today. But you don't know what cult is. See, you thought it was cult of their definitions and meanings. No, this cult takes you to be being separated from the rest of the people, of the evil and wicked ones, false prophets. I'm not false. You have K-U-L-T? What Bible it takes you to? There is none. Why? Go to Revelation chapter 21 and verse 3. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 3. Actually, that's verse 1. That we know it's a great voice of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. But how did that happen? It starts at verse 1. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 1. And that says, I quote, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Because what? For the first heaven and the first earth will pass away. I revealed that there's no more. There's no such thing as earth. It's not a structure. And heaven is not what you thought it was. It's my Father. So the Father is heaven and the Son is earth. The first heaven, the first earth will pass away, and there was no more sea. S-E-A. So when you go back now to your concordance, you typed in C-U-L-T, it took us to sodomite. But when you typed in K-U-L-T, it took you to no. Why? Because there's no such thing. You say cult, but you put C. There's no more C. So you either got to go to K or you got to go to S. So put an S there instead of the K or the C. And see where that takes us, S-U. Where does that take you? S-U-L-T. Not in the Bible. Not in any Bible. No. So now you got to come out of that. But don't take away. Just leave the S-U-L-T there. Why? You have 4 letters. 4 letters. Each letter is scientifically composed of or composing a word. Each word is a letter. That means we can take these 4 letters and make another word out of the very same 4 letters. So, of course, the last letter is the T. So we're going to leave the T last. But what we're going to do is, I want you to do this, take the L, leave the L like it is, and put the U next to the L. I mean, you can make the U disappear. Now you have slut or slew. Is that right? You have slut? That's a whore. S-U-L-T, slut. I have a meaning, and I go to you can go to your Google, you can put S-L-U-T, meaning slut. I have a sexually promiscuous woman. The common denotative, the common denotative meanings of slut are sexually promiscuous women or woman, or immoral or dissolute woman, prostitute. These definitions identify a slut as a woman of low character, a person who slacks the ability or chooses not to exercise a power of discernment to order her affairs. Slut. S-L-U-T. That we got when we started from cult with no C. We put an S there, we got slut, S-L-U-T. We just switched the L and the U a little bit. That right? Okay, so let's go back now, because we couldn't find slut in the Bible. I mean, his cult, the fifth angel's cult, turns into a slut of a woman. I mean, he desires a woman of a slut. And because of that, then there's another word that we can create from these four letters that becomes an acronym with the slut. And what most men would do with a slut. And that would mean you'd have to take the S now from the front before the L, take the S away and put the S now before the T. And now you should have L-U-S-T. Which is lust. And I'm encouraging all of my people, those of Israel, you should wrestle along it, to not fall into this lust, L-U-S-T. And I preserve that in Matthew chapter 5. You see it? In verse 28, I say to you again, but I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart, which is your mind. That's lust. This lust is also found as part of your soul. When you look at Psalms chapter 78 and verse 18, and they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their lust. For their what? This lust under H5315 takes you to nafesh, which means the soul of a person. The mental faculties, the soul, the seat of emotion. That's lust. And I caution you not to do this. As you go back to lust and your concordance, I warn you again. In 1 John chapter 2 and verse 16. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. Do not lust, Judah. That's under Greek G 1939, lust. It takes you to desire and craving, along with desire for what is forbidden. And that's found, we believe in, don't forget, that's coming from cult that you thought was cult. Took us right to slut and now to lust. Lusting after the slut. Do not lust after slut. So stay out of that cult of the lust of the slut. Judah. That comes from cult, sodomite, all that was hidden in English. How about that? And let me remind you also, see, I knew this in advance, they were going to do that. That's why I left the words hidden in Hebrew and in Greek. So they take you right back to be honored. Don't forget, it's on the H6945. at age 69 to come from age 69, 42 to be honored from that word cult. We already took you through no one has seen God and no one knows God but the Son. Before I show you that as we close, let me first take you back to the sect. I promise that in the last days, all the names of sons of Jacob will have a meaning in the last days. So go to your concordance and type in SECT in the search box. Once you have that SECT, right, you have that. It's going to take you right back to where we started. Set. That's 5 times in the Bible, all the book called. Why not the New Testament? I mean, why not the Old Testament? All in the book called Acts. All 5 times of Set is in the book called the Acts of the New Testament. Why not the Old? Why not? Because Set is a prefix. Set is a prefix. So take out SECT, go back to the search box, take out SECT of the suffix. Actually, the prefix. Set is a prefix. Sec is a prefix. It comes prefix. It's missing the suffix. So what's the suffix? ION. Type ION in the search box. And what do you get? Anything in the King James Version? Just ION and click it and see where it takes you. It takes you to Latin. It takes you Latin. Doesn't it? You see Latin? Click on it. You see Latin from 2 Chronicles 16:4? 2 Chronicles 16:4. You have it, it's in 2 different Bibles, but click on the RVR. You got it? Latin, right? You don't read Latin. Judah's not Latin. Judah is in Latin America. Judah's all over the planet. Judah speaks Spanish today from the Spaniard slave master. Go back to the search box. You have ION, right? Just type in ION. The first letter is what? A vowel. That vowel, I. Is that correct? Okay. So I is their 9th letter from A. Is that correct? Okay. I promise that in the last day of the Yaakov, we recognize all 12. This I actually hid Naphtali. What number is Naphtali of the sons of Yaakov, the sons of Jacob? Go to Genesis chapter 49 for a moment. Genesis chapter 49. And I'm going to read that. Verse 1. And I repeat, I said it before. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken to Israel your father. Now you have Reuben, which is the firstborn, in verse 3. Simeon and Levi, that's Numbers 2 and 3 in verse 5. Judah in verse 8, which is 4. Zebulun in verse 13, which is 5. Issachar, verse 14, 6. Dan, verses 16 and 17, 7. Gad is 8. Asher, 9. Naphtali, 10. Naphtali, 10, in verse 21. Yosef, in verse 22, 11. And finally, Benjamin, the youngest, is in verse 27. In verse 28, it says, I quote, all these are the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is it that their father spake unto them, and blessed them, every one according to his blessing, he blessed them. Now go back up to Naphtali, number 10. Is that right? Naphtali is number 10 from Asher. Asher is 9, Naphtali is 10. Of Genesis chapter 49, verse 21. Now go back to your search box, and you have ION. You should leave it. It should have been ION still there. ION. It being that I of their letters represents the 9th letter. That would be Asher. Is that right? And we looked for ION and we couldn't find it. It took us to Latin. However, Naphtali is there hidden in ION of the SECT. And when you put SECT as a prefix and ION as a suffix, it takes you to the word section. Is that right? Okay, but do not put the SECT yet. Don't put the SECT there yet. Leave the ION there because we're dealing with Naphtali. We have to find Naphtali. Naphtali is number 10. Naphtali is number 10. Asher is number 9. Asher represents the I. So you must place the 10th English's letter after the I, which is what? J. So put a J after the I. And we're going to eventually get to all 12 sections that was preserved in Ezekiel chapter 38. Now you see it? Click on, put the J after the I, it should take you to Eon. Eon. Hidden under H5859. Do you have it? Eon. That means what? A ruin. Do you have it? 3 times. Click on H5859, a ruin. You have it? And where does that take you? A place in the north of Palestine belongs to the tribe of Naphtali. Hidden, that I hid for the last days. The etymology is H5856 under E. E, which means ruin, heap of ruins. Under E, H5856. And there you see I there by itself. Or E, iron. Iron, Yod, E, under H5856. Iron from right to left. Iron, Yod. That means heap of ruins. And it comes from H5753, which takes us right back to commit iniquity and to do wrong. That means this sect that he accused us of a sect, with the ION as a suffix with the prefix SECT, ION takes to a section of people that commit iniquity and doing wrong. And it couldn't be us. But also divides the tribes of Israel in the last days. That means go back now to your search box and type in Naphtali, Naphtali, Naphtali. And let's get the meaning of the word of the name Naphtali, so-called name of Naphtali. And Naphtali takes us to be twisted, the meaning. And that's under H. You have it? That's under H 6617. 6617. So Naphtali has been fulfilled the last days. I am now fulfilling the promise of Naphtali's name in the last days, according to Genesis chapter 49, verses 1 and 2. And I believe verse 27 of that promise of the last days. Now being fulfilled. And it's funny how the number actually Naphtali is under 21. 21 is a hand let loose. He giveth goodly works, goodly words. And in Genesis 49:21, Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. And these are goodly words I'm using from Naphtali. See, that was hidden. See, the goodly word that was hidden under Naphtali was cult, Set, sodomite, all hidden by Naphtali. And especially the Eon. The Eon. And now, go back to your search box. All hidden by Naphtali. Destroyer. I'm destroying the lies that they said I'm a liar. I'm destroying the lies that were told by the liars on me as a liar. Not a liar. Every single thing that I've revealed and testified of in this testimony, in this video, is the truth, confirmed and proven by facts, even by in many Bibles, not just the King James Version, dictionaries, encyclopedias, all proven. Even the archives, even those that are not available at hand right now, go look in the archives yourself and do your own study and research. I'm the same Micah that was promised to come back. The whole book, all 7 seals of Micah chapter, the whole book called Micah, all 7 chapters is sealed. I promised in chapter 7 I'll be back. Don't you know that Micah and the Christ are the same? It tells you that in Micah chapter 7, you can go to Micah chapter 7 and see that I said that a son would be against the father, the daughter against the mother-in-law, the daughter-in-law against the mother-in-law. And then go to Matthew, I believe in chapter 15, you'll see the same thing. I believe it's chapter 15. If not, it's there in Matthew, the same thing. Only Micah would say that. And the Christ would say that. It's the same soul. The same soul. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, the same soul. The same yesterday, today, and forever. Now you go back, like I mentioned, to your search box and type in SEC set. And now you have to add ION at the end. That's a prefix and suffix. It should take you to section. Section, the word itself, is not in the KJV. They place it in the NKJV. Section. You find it? Click on that and see it takes you to Ezekiel chapter 48. Chapter 48. You see it? It says section. In fact, Ezekiel chapter 48 in that new KJV and verse 4, Ezekiel chapter 48, verse 4 says, by the border of Naphtali, from the east side to the west, one section for Manasseh. Up in verse 3, it says, by the border of Asher, from the east side to the west, one section for Naphtali. See Naphtali there again? So now let's go to the King James Version in the same book and chapter and see if it gives us a different word other than section that was there. It should take us to like a portion. Ezekiel chapter 48 in the King James Version, which is the very last chapter of Ezekiel. And in chapter 48 of Ezekiel in verse 4, it takes us to the word border opposed to section. It takes us to border. Opposed to section. You see it? And this border is hidden under H 1366. That takes us to territory. It's a border, which is synonymous. Synonymous. So opposed to section in the King James Version Bible, in the New KJV, they put section. In the Old KJV, they have border, which is territory. So this territory comes from the word sect. It takes us to Ion of Naphtali, the Ijon. That means that in the last days, Naphtali will be, the name Naphtali would be used to vindicate a sect and a cult to be separated from the rest of the people with the separation of a section and the portion. And other books give us the word portion. And that will come under, let's go to, as we close, let's go to, back to your search box. You can call it and type in portion. 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 And that takes us to the port. Look at Ezekiel chapter 48. We're still in Ezekiel 48. That says in verse 2, actually we can go to verse 4, verse 3, and by the border of Ashar from the east side, even to the west side, a portion of Naphtali. In verse 4, and by the border of Naphtali from the east side and to the west side, a portion from Manasseh. And here you have border and portion in the same verse. And the meaning of portion is under H 2506. H 2506 that says, it takes the Hebrew word chelek. It also takes you to Lamentations chapter 3, verse 34, actually 24. Lamentations chapter 3, verse 24, that reads, and I quote, "The Lord is my portion, saith my soul, therefore will I hope in him." Again, Lamentations chapter 3, verse 24, "The Lord is my portion, saith my soul, therefore will I hope in him." And that takes us to H 2506, which is the award from God. And to divide a portion under H, its etymology under H 2505. All of this came from sect and cult. As I'm a cult leader and a sect leader, all hidden for divinity to be divided and proven. The Lord is my portion. This port takes us to Nehemiah. as we close. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 13. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 13. If you take out the ION, see the ION away from the portion, just put import. Just put import. Go back to your search box and put import. Take out the ION that took us Naphtali, as he gets a portion from Asher, and he gives a portion to Manasseh. And see this to take you to Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 13. It says, I quote, "And I went out by night by the gate of the valley, even before the dragon well, into the dung port, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down. And the gates thereof were consumed with fire." And I just broke them down. I just broke everything down, the walls and the gates. The gate broke down by the port, the dung port. This port, which is the only place in the Bible that's found, that was come from the Hebrew word shakar. That means gate. It means gate according to H 8179, Sahar. That means gate of a palace, royal castle, temple, the court of the tabernacle in heaven. This coming from portion or the port, which is synonymous to section, which is taken from the word set, its root word set. Also to split open, to calculate, estimate of its etymology, H 8176. All of this comes from set and cult. That's where all this comes from. So I'm a leader. Of course I am. I'm a leader of those. I mean, you need to come out of her. What you should do is come out of that world of the English speaking people and your wickedness and evilness. Come out of that world, humble yourself and submit yourself to the truth. Stop trying to be someone who you're not. You can never be who I am, never. And you can continue to make your accusations all you'd like. And what I'm going to do is take it and just burn them up, and then I refine it as silver is refined, and try as gold is tried. I'll reform it and reshape it into something good. I will take your evil and make it all good. The more evil you bring to me, the more good I bring to the people. It's called reversed. I reverse psychology on your evil and wicked ass. I just reversed your psychology. I use reverse psychology on your mind because your mind's reprobate. That concludes my part 2 of your teeth of the loose, the fifth angel loose from its seal, the bottomless pit. And that concludes it. I got to move on to now 2 more rows before yours. And you can't even imagine who they are, but you will. You'll all see soon. You'll all see. And with that I say, shalom to those of my people.